Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Garage Biljon and the 924 Safari build. In this episode, we are going to mount the front suspension. But before we do that, let me show you what I've got on the bench. I have finished rebuilding these two steering racks. This one is my old rack that came off my Turbo, and this is the rack that came off of the Safari. There are just a couple of things I need to finish, and that is equip it with a couple of new parts. One is a new cap and the other one is a new stopper for the centering bolt. So let's quickly get this done and then we'll get back onto the front suspension. Alright, so for those of you who have been following along since the beginning, you will know that I have new ball joints for my tie rods, and the reason for that is because I cut this ball joint nut off in order to get this out of the car. So I've already loosened this up and it's just quickly going to screw this off. Alright, so the new ball joint's onto the tie rod and the new bellows is also onto the tie rod. It's easier to do this before you put the ball joint back on, otherwise you have to stretch everything to fit. So once I've got the tie rod connected to the steering rack, we just cover it up with this bellows. Oops, I actually forgot to do something, which luckily I found it now and not later, and that is to install the stop ring. And this stop ring was only issued after model year 78, I think, for 79 onwards. And what that does is it sits right on that collar there, and it stops the steering rack from going too far into the tube. So don't forget to put this on. I nearly did. Let's quickly remedy that. Alright, that took a little bit longer than I thought, to be honest. But anyway, we have a rebuilt steering rack. Let's start from the one end. We have a new tie rod end or ball joint. We have rebuilt tie rods. Well, rebuilt, I've painted them. The joints were fine. Brand new bellows. The steering rack is rebuilt. You can see I have a original Porsche stopper sitting in there. This is quite expensive. It was 20 bucks. I've got a new cap on the top. I have a new clamp holding the bellows onto the big side. I've got another new bellow, painted tie rod, and a new tie rod end. So all of this is now ready to go back on the car. But before we do that, obviously we want to first put in the front suspension. So let's get going on that. I'm going to disconnect the brake calipers so that they can be sent off to be refurbished. I don't really have the kit to do it properly, so I'm getting them sandblasted, completely rebuilt, and then they'll go back on the car. So we'll disconnect them now. I've got a bottle to catch the brake fluid. I've got some APC and a brush to clean out this wheel well, and once that's done, I've got some water in this bottle that I can spray it down with, and once that's all dry, I will paint it with a bit of stone chip to make sure that it doesn't corrode, and once all that's done, the suspension is going in. So stay tuned. Alright, so as always, nothing ever goes 100% smooth on this car. This one came off within a minute. This one took me about an hour, and I have now mangled the hose that it was hanging on, which is this guy. It's not too bad, but in the end I had to get a vice grip on it to get it loose. So while these hoses are actually not bad, I am now also going to replace them because why not, right? We're in this deep already. And I think this also shows you how much work I have with the cleaning to do. All right, so that cleaned up quite nicely. This is the right-hand side wheel arch, all cleaned up, and I've sprayed it black. Not out of choice, but because all three other arches were black, so this would have been weird if this was still blue. So now it is black, and I'm letting it dry. And once it's dry, I'll give it a protective coating. So the wheel arch is now cleaned and it's put into some wax. So that means we are ready to install an A-arm, caster blocks and a strut. All right, let's see if we can wiggle this guy in there. Yeah, that seems to be working. All right, will you stay? Yes, you will stay. Make sure that before you insert your bolts, you put some copper slip onto them. This will stop them from corroding in future. Alright, since it's been quite a while since I've taken this apart, I thought it's a good idea to just have a look at the way that this is supposed to go together. Not so much the big components, but I was more interested in how the bolts go in, which way they need to be pointing. And it's now clear that the bolts go in from the front of the car with a nut at the back. That's the first thing we have to do. And the same actually goes for the strut. The bolts go in from the front with a nut sitting on the back. Alright, so I've put some copper slip on the bolt and it needs to come in from the front. There we go. Yes. All right, so the first A-arm is in. This is on the driver's side. It's just hanging there reasonably tight at the moment. You should only torque this up once you got the car on its weight. But I've tightened them up sufficiently for us to continue working. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to install the strut up here and then get the ball joint to go into the hub and into the strut. Next job is getting the hub into the strut. And as everything has been powder coated, this is not as straightforward as you might think. So I need to bang it into place. Alright, after quite some wiggling, I've got the hub onto the strut. Now it's just a matter of tightening up these bolts and then we can get it onto the car. Alright, she's not fully torqued up, but at least these nuts are where they need to be. So I'm going to get the strut into the car now and see if we can then bring the A-arm to meet into the hub right there. right, she's in. Took a little bit of manhandling, but she's in, and she's working well, as you can see. So I now have to just tighten up the nuts a little bit more. Once that's done, we are in essence done with this side. We still have to get the steering rack in. I have to put on the new discs, and I am sending away the calipers to be rebuilt. So it's going to take a while, but at least this is in. This is a step in the right direction, and I'm very happy with this. I've got the speedo cable pulled through as well on this side, so we can drive the speedometer. And I have this all buttoned up. Again, nothing's torqued up. I'll torque this up once the car's on its wheels, but it's looking really, really, really good. So this is where I'm going to stop. I will do the other side during the week in the evenings. And when you join me next time, I should have them both in the car, and we can start building up the discs and the steering rack, and then we should be almost ready to drop her onto her wheels. Thank you for watching. I know we didn't get a lot done today, but there will be more in next episode. So keep watching, keep subscribing, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.